Hey guys, welcome to Most of It, where I cover most things that I find interesting. Today, we will be starting a new series where I cover the history of the Primarchs in Warhammer 40k. We will, of course, be starting with Mr. Numero Uno, Lionel Johnson, also called the Lion. So, without further ado, let's get into this. So, Mr. Lionel Johnson. He is the firstborn of the Emperor's sons, hailing from the Death World known as Caliban. Now, if you don't know what a Death World is, it is a planet that is so dangerous and inhospitable to life that is technically considered suicide to try to live on one of them. Caliban is described as a beautiful yet cursed world, hosting many beasts known, funnily enough, as the Great Beasts of Caliban. Caliban was also home to something known as the Order, a group of Arthurian techno knights which managed to carve out a piece of real estate from the forests of the planet. So, the lion crash lands on this planet as a baby and begins to grow up within the forest for about a decade, slaughtering many of the beasts which would normally terrify a full grown man. So one day, the Order stumbles upon the young Primarch, who by this point was larger than a grown man, and seeing him in a near feral state, prepared to kill him. But a man among the Order named Luther sensed something different about this guy and prevented the other knights from killing him, and with some effort managed to convince the lion to come back with them to their fortress monastery, where they cleaned him up, and Luther named him Lionel Johnson in honor of the fierceness which he fought with, which reminded Luther of the most feared of the Caliban beasts, the Calibanite lion. The lion, being a Primarch, grew quickly and became a part of the Order, which soon departed on a crusade against the beasts at Caliban, which, through the might of the lion and his strategic action, was a resounding success. After the crusade, the lion, having enabled the crusade to happen, demanded fealty from the orders of Caliban. Many were happy to give their fealty over to him. Others, however, were not so happy. These parties were hunted down and destroyed quickly. Eventually, units of the Emperor's Great Crusade arrived upon Caliban, and upon meeting the Lion, who was at this time the 12th Primarch to be found, he was given his very own legion of Space Marines made from his gene seed known as the Dark Angels. The Lion, upon meeting the Emperor and recognizing him to be his father, immediately swore fealty to him, and he and his legion joined the Great Crusade. Together with his gene sons, the Lion brought the Emperor's truth to many worlds, purging the Xenos, the Mutant, and the Heretic, and was even a preferred candidate for the position of War Master. The Emperor, of course, ended up naming his favorite son, Horus Lupercal, to be War Master. Big shocker there, to the slight disappointment of the Lion. Over time, the Lion and Luther, who had been inducted into the Dark Angels Legion and held an office second only to the Lion himself, had a falling out, which caused the Lion to station Luther and the other Dark Angels who hailed from Caliban back on their homeworld. Luther, seeing this as his being exiled, began to plant the seeds of a rebellion against the Lion and the Imperium as a whole, wishing to return Caliban and its people to its once independent state. Meanwhile, when the War Master turned against the Emperor, he, knowing the Dark Angels and the Primarch would cause problems for his rebellion, had them stationed in a campaign far away from Terra. The Lion, upon learning of the War Master's treachery, knew that in order to succeed, Horus would have to make it to Terra and kill the Emperor, so as long as Terra and the Emperor remained safe, Horus could never truly triumph. The Lion decided to lead a small force to take an Imperial production world, which Horus had already sent troops to in order to secure the siege weapons that were made there. He succeeded in this act, and upon taking control of the world's weapons, entrusted them to his brother Perturabo and his legion, the Iron Warriors. However, this being early in the heresy, sides had not been drawn yet, and the Lion's trust in his brother was misplaced, for he had already cast his lot with Horus against the Emperor. The Lion, believing they had crippled the traitor forces, returned to the rest of his legion, who had been making preparations to return to Terra. But the War Master, in an attempt to waylay the Loyalist legions from returning to Terra, had dispatched the Night Lords Legion and their Primarch Conrad Kurz to sow terror on some Imperial worlds near the Dark Angel Station. During their genocides, Kurz invited the Lion to meet with him on the planet Sugwalsa, where Kurz would goad him into a battle which would result in the Lion getting his throat slashed and Kurz getting a sword in his back for his troubles. A hate arose within the Lion against Kurz and his legion that day, a hate which would shape his actions in the coming conflicts. Both Primarchs, being Primarchs, healed quickly from their wounds, and the Lion is not a little bitch, so he wanted a rematch with Kurz. And using a warp engine they had discovered, ambushed the Night Lords in a second battle against his brother, leaving Kurz in a comatose state and his son severely injured. Eventually, Kurz healed from his wounds, and with the relentless Lion still on his tail, decided to sneak aboard the Lion's ship, called the Invincible Reason, and hid on it for weeks, killing every unit that was sent to find him. Even the Lion himself was unable to find him. Due to a powerful warp storm created by the Wordbearers Legion, the Lion was unable to return to Terra, and instead decided to go to the planets of Ultramar to meet with and ascertain the loyalties of his brother Rabute Gilliman, Primarch of the Ultramarines. Upon arrival, he was also met with his brother Sanguinius, Primarch of the Blood Angels. Having determined the three Primarchs all remain loyal, and not knowing the fate of the Emperor, they decided to form Imperium Secundus, naming Sanguinius the temporary emperor until the survival of Terra could be verified. Eventually, Kurz left the Invincible Reason and began rampaging across Ultramar seeking revenge against his elder brother, killing many of the planet's civilians in the process. After a while, the Lion was able to catch up with his Primarch brother and hit him with a backbreaker, paralyzing him within his armor, and drug him before the Emperor Sanguinius to stand trial for his crimes. Kurz, who was cursed with constantly seeing visions of his own future, declared unto them that they could not kill him, for he was destined to die at the hands of an assassin sent by the Emperor. The Lion, upon hearing this, realized that a dead Emperor could not send an assassin, and that meant that Terra must still be standing, and convinced his brothers to find a way to return there with him. Kurz was held prisoner aboard the Invincible Reason to face justice at the hands of the Emperor, and using their warp engine, the Dark Angels and the two other Loyalist legions attempted to navigate the warp storm in their way, eventually finding a route within it back to Terra. But the War Master somehow had foreseen this route and placed a blockade of traitor legions to block entry. The Lion and Rabute Gilliman decided to distract the blockade while Sanguinius and his legion made their way toward Terra. Eventually, during the siege of Terra, the light of the Emperor went dark for the Dark Angel Legion. The Lion, believing the Emperor to be dead, promised that rather than head toward Terra, he and his legions would attack the traitor legion's homeworlds in hopes of drawing troops away from Terra. He eventually met up with his brothers Leman Russ, Primarch of the Space Wolves, and Corvus Corax, Primarch of the Raven Guard. Russ would join his brother in his endeavor, with Corax entrusting a few units to the Lion's cause. They then made their way back to Terra. Their forces arrived too late to make a difference in the battle, or the Emperor being interred upon the Golden Throne. Johnson, racked with guilt, decided to return to Caliban to rest and recover his forces. When they arrived upon the planet, they were fired upon by the forces of Luther. The Lion, of course, furious with another betrayal, fought their way to the fortress monastery, and upon seeing Luther, realized he was completely corrupted by the Chaos Gods, who had empowered him to be on parity with the Lion. The battle between Johnson and Luther was massive, with them completely leveling the monastery around them, but it ended with a psychic attack from Luther that mortally wounded Johnson. Luther, upon realizing what he had done, fought off the corruption of chaos and fell to the floor, refusing to fight. The Chaos Gods, seeing they had lost, unleashed a massive warp storm upon the surface of Caliban, breaking the planet apart in the process, all save the monastery, which had great force fields protecting it. The Dark Angels, seeking their Primarch, landed upon the monastery and discovered only Luther, mumbling to himself that the Watchers in the Dark, the native spirits of Caliban, had taken the Lion, and that he would one day return to forgive him of his sins. The remainder of Luther's forces, now called the Fallen, were scattered by the warp storm and hid from the Dark Angel's forces. The Lion awoke within a pocket dimension known as Mirror Caliban, without his memories, having slept for millennia since the destruction of Caliban. With some assistance from the Watchers in the Dark, the Lion recovered his memories and learned how to freely enter and exit Mirror Caliban, and learned he could use it to travel to other planets without need for the warp. After discovering the Emperor's shield within Mirror Caliban, he met with a group of Blood Angels who revealed unto him that he was not the only remaining Primarch, and that his brother Rabute Gilliman also lived. The Blood Angels also explained to him that they had need for him in a battle against Vashtor the Archifane, the Black Legion, and the World Eaters. Upon joining the battle, the Lion saved the Blood Angel Dante from his once brother Angron, who had now ascended to become a demon servant of Khorne the Chaos God. The two Primarchs battled, with Johnson eventually banishing Angron back to the warp. Being victorious, the Lion then turned his attention to the crumbling Imperium, Imperion worlds, bypassing and purifying the local governance, and beginning a reform of the Imperium as a whole, all while finding the remaining fallen and either reconciling with them, or, if they had become too corrupted by chaos, giving them a swift end. And that's where the story stands currently. The Lion is personally my second favorite of the Loyalist Primarchs, and is debatably, if not the greatest of all the Primarchs. His nature is that of a predatory beast playing at the role of a lord, and I find that very compelling. I see the Lion as a man who, from birth, has had to become little more than a savage weapon, and as a result of that, often treats those around him as tools. And that's what led to Luther, the tool he cast away, to rebel. The Lion is a man who is learning that the world is full of shades of gray. His taking of the Emperor's shield to me symbolizes his passing from the Imperium's warden to becoming its defender. His reconciling with some of the fallen shows that he is now not only much older, but also much wiser, allowing those around him to make mistakes and to grow from them, eventually returning to him. If you want to learn more about the Lion and his Legion, I would encourage you to read the books Angels of Caliban, Ruin Storm, and The Lion, Son of the Forest. All three are great reads. That's all I got for today, guys. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and comment down below what topics you'd like to see me cover next, whether Warhammer related or otherwise. I'll be coming out with more videos exploring the rest of the Primarchs in the coming weeks. And with that said, I'll see you guys later.